everyone, and welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA and the first webinar of your orientation, Countdown to VISTA Service. Your VISTA service is a year-long commitment, and this period before you start service is really meant to provide you with the opportunity to learn about VISTA service as well as to ensure that this is the right choice for you. My name is Chris Hawks, and I'm joined by my colleague Andy King. We will be your host today from VISTA headquarters in Washington, D.C. You will also see our VISTA colleagues Kaylee Ramovich, Kate Jordan, and Khadija Carr, as well as our partners at LSI, Julie and Peter, in the chat and Q&A throughout the session. Your comments to the pre-session chat really shows that you've all come to the right place. Some of you have seen poverty firsthand, and all of you see VISTA as an opportunity tied to the purpose of helping others.
I would like to add my welcome as well, and thank you for joining AmeriCorps VISTA. I hope this year will be a wonderful and challenging experience for you, and I look forward to working with you today. I'm always really gratified when I get a chance to interact with VISTA members and incoming VISTAs like you. Seeing your comments in the chat earlier about what brought you to VISTA is just really so inspiring and heartwarming. So thank you, all of you, for being here. And from all of us at VISTA headquarters, we're very excited to welcome you and to help you get prepared for your VISTA service. So let's begin with today's session objectives. In this session, we plan to cover the types of support that are available to you as a VISTA member, what it is you need to complete before you start service, what to do on your first day of service. We'll talk about some of the benefits that you'll receive as a VISTA member, and then we'll review with you the conditions of VISTA service. We'll also have time for your questions. All right, so Chris, do you want to kick us off?
Yep, thanks, Andy. So we're going to start off by looking at the two main websites that will support you throughout the year and even after your year of service. So My AmeriCorps and the VISTA Campus. So My AmeriCorps, or my.americorps.gov, you're all at least relatively familiar with. It's where you apply to your AmeriCorps position, where you complete your pre-service forms like direct deposit information and W-4 and others, and where you can access your VISTA assignment description, which we'll refer to as VAD, V-A-D. It is also where, in a few weeks, you will be able to access your living allowance statements. You can request certain benefits, and you'll be able to print a letter that verifies your VISTA service. We'll talk a little more about those later on. The VISTA Campus, or vistacampus.gov, you also all should be at least relatively familiar with, is where you complete your onboarding coursework and tutorials. It also has learning resources for your entire year and is a great resource to learn more about all your VISTA benefits. Additionally, the VISTA Campus is where you can find the VISTA Member Handbook, which is a great source of information, both right now, pre-service, and throughout your year of service. So when in doubt, if you have a question about benefits or a question about VISTA guidelines, the VISTA Campus is going to have a lot of information for you. There's a lot there, so we certainly recommend it. You can also connect with other VISTAs through the campus discussion forums as well and speak with others throughout the country.
As Chris was saying, the VISTA Campus has a lot to offer, and today we're going to point out just a few key resources that will help you start your service year strong. We encourage you to delve into the site because it's an important element in helping you to navigate your year of service by building skills, obtaining professional development opportunities, and more. So a quick look at the navigation bar lets you know that there are materials to help you as you live and serve as a VISTA. Here's just a snapshot of what's under the Learning Resources section. You can also locate and reach out to other VISTAs using the VISTA map and, as Chris mentioned, the VISTA forums. On the VISTA Campus, we also offer webinars on a range of topics related to life as a VISTA, things like living on the living allowance and using the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award, as well as webinars on the work that VISTAs do, such as building a digital ad campaign or strategizing your funding search. We record all of these sessions and we post them on the campus so you can go back and watch them at any time. In addition to the webinars, AmeriCorps Vista has another training opportunity that might interest you called the AmeriCorps Vista In-Service Training, or IST. In-Service Training is designed to bring together VISTA members early in their service year to strengthen their skills, build their knowledge, and create networks for effective service. We'll talk a little bit more about in-service training in next week's webinar.
And throughout your year, you'll likely want, and at times need, some support. The VISTA program involves a lot of different layers that help support the work that VISTAs are doing, as well as supporting all of you, the VISTA members. So first up, we have your supervisor. Your supervisor is there to support you in your day-to-day tasks. It's important to keep your supervisor up to date with any changes in your plans. So if your plans do change, maybe, for example, you aren't able to relocate at this time, or some personal circumstance comes up that maybe prevents you from serving, or maybe it prevents you from starting on August 5th, but you might have been told or maybe need to start a couple weeks later, you would need, in those scenarios, you would need to just check with your supervisor first and let them know, speak it out, and make sure everything's clear. You can also reply to any of the emails you receive from myself, Chris Hawks. Just a quick reply, hey, I'm a little confused on this aspect. I was told one thing, but I'm hearing another. We're here for you to help support you. So first off, supervisor. Next up, the CNCS state office. So your state office is the CNCS office that oversees your project. They can be a great resource for you if you have any concerns about your project, or if there's a question maybe that your supervisor can't answer. The state office can be easily reached by email using the state abbreviation at cns.gov. So a quick example, if you're serving in Texas, it'd be tx@cns.gov. Finally, you are also supported by VISTA headquarters, which includes the VISTA Training Unit and the VISTA Member Support Unit, or VMSU, among other departments. The VMSU is a super helpful resource for questions regarding your benefits. There's some AmeriCorps Vista resources and contact sheet that can be found on the Starting VISTA page. That Starting VISTA page is where you were the link you were given to go to right at the beginning that shows all your pre-service forms, your pre-service coursework. So there's a resources and contact sheet there that's really helpful. It kind of tells you who to contact and where to locate them, if they have a website. The PDF for that resources and contact is also here in this handouts to download pod. So it's a great cheat sheet, one-pager, to show you who to contact for specific questions. We suggest you keep a copy of that where you can find it, not only now for pre-service, but also throughout your year. You can also manage your own support by taking time to navigate vistacampus.gov and my.americorps.gov so that you're familiar with them and know where to go. And when in doubt, contact your CNCS state office or the VISTA Member Support Unit through the National Service Hotline.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the things that you need to do before your first day of service, before you arrive on site at your VISTA project. So by now, you should have received an email that pointed you to the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA Campus. You see it here on the screen. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. I'm going to highlight what's included there and what you need to complete before your first day of service. So one of the requirements is to complete your onboarding forms. So those are things like your direct deposit, your federal tax withholding, it's also known as a W-4 form, your unpaid compensation, that is where you designate a beneficiary, and then your end of service benefit selection, whether you want the education award or the cash award. So all of these forms are located in my.americorps.gov, and we ask you to complete them right away. These forms are required in order for us to complete your enrollment in the VISTA program, and we need to have them completed in order for us to process your living allowance and other benefits. We've asked you to complete them all by the end of the day tomorrow. That way we've got Thursday and Friday to follow up with you if there's any issue or whatever. So if you haven't started these, it doesn't take long, but we just need you to do them. So there are special provisions that apply to some benefits once you start service, so be sure to read all of the information that goes along with these. And we're going to review some of these a little bit later on in the presentation. So in addition to those onboarding forms, you're also required to complete a few online tutorials. These online tutorials are located on the Starting VISTA page of the VISTA Campus, and they also should be completed right away. We want you to get them done this week, if at all possible. And the reason we ask you to do them is because these courses give you the information you need to get started strong in your VISTA service term. A special note is that the VISTA Terms and Conditions course, the one that you see illustrated here on the slide, is linked to your account in my.americorps.gov. So you take the course, the actual tutorial on the VISTA Campus, but then you accept or certify rather your acceptance of those terms in my.americorps.gov. And you have to accept the terms and conditions as well as the civil rights and responsibilities piece before you can start service next Monday. So that's why we ask you to get that done this week. The forms that I talked about ensure that you receive your living allowance and the other benefits that you qualify for. And these tutorials help guide you in your first few weeks as a VISTA so that you know about the program and what's expected. As a note reminder, we ask that you complete them. You've got to complete them before you show up at your VISTA service site. And a couple of the tutorials, like the benefits of service and the VISTA Campus overview, they're not going to show as like completed or tracked. You won't be able to see in your account whether you've done them or not. That's okay. If you do them, you'll know that you've done them, and that's all that matters. But if we, on our end, see anything that's missing, we'll reach out and let you know.
So let's talk about your first day of service. So we expect you to be at your VISTA project, which is the office where you will be serving, on your first day of service, which is Monday, August 5th, 2019. And remember that as a VISTA member, you serve for a full year, 365-day term. And as mentioned previously, if any of you were told a different start date that wasn't Monday, August 5, just let your supervisor know. Also, just shoot me an email and let me know. You can reply to any of the emails sent out, and we'll get things squared away. So those of you who are relocating to serve must be moved into your new places by next Monday. If you are unable to show up on this date, or if you're unsure where to go, make sure you contact your supervisor or state office immediately, as well as myself. And yeah, again, as mentioned previously, we'll get things squared away. You don't need to stress or worry on that area. So as a VISTA, you will be serving in a professional work environment, and you'll want to set yourself up for success. We suggest you confirm your plans with your supervisor if you haven't been in contact for a while, or if you are maybe unsure of the address where you need to report. It'd also be a good idea to confirm with your supervisor the time that you should arrive on that first day, the dress code perhaps of the organization, the parking situation if you happen to be driving, or any other special considerations. Maybe the average commute time so you don't show up late that first day, or if you should maybe bring anything with you on your first day or first week. Sometimes you might have some documents that your project may wish to see. So just reach out to your supervisor. It'd be a good idea to jot some of these questions down, ask beforehand, just to make sure everyone's on the same page and that you show up ready on your first day of service. If you're unable to get in contact with your supervisor, again, please either let myself know or you can reach out to your CNCS state office. We'll make sure everything is squared away. So the VISTA program is not responsible for securing your housing. However, if you are in need of housing, you should speak with your supervisor first, as they likely know the area and may be able to advise you on some possible options. You can also search the discussion forums on the VISTA campus to see how other VISTA members utilize each other and resources to benefit them. There's a lot of good ideas there. Take advantage of other housing options as well, but also be aware to avoid any potential scams. Some possible signs of scams are options that just seem too good to be true, maybe emails from iffy email addresses, or listings that have distorted images or spelling mistakes. Stay clear. So along with your new supervisor's support on the first day, again, which is Monday, August 5th, VISTA headquarters will present a webinar called Launching Your VISTA Service, which is at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the exact same time that this webinar started. That'll be next Monday. So similar to this webinar, you'll also receive an email from Adobe Connect with details for joining the session and your personal, your link to log in. We will highlight in that webinar certain points and decisions you must make about your benefits and terms of service. Please note that this will not be a comprehensive overview of your benefits. We will trust that you have reviewed the benefits page on the VISTA campus and that you understand your benefits. We'll also administer the oath of office to you. You will get more details on next Monday's webinar, including details on the new electronic oath submission process. So no more paper forms. Just up until recently, it was all paper, now electronic, which is great. And just make sure you know or remember your password for your MyAmericorps account, because the electronic oath is submitted through your MyAmericorps account. So make sure you have that. If you don't know your login information, just make sure you're up to date on that prior to next Monday's webinar. Also, on your first day of service, your supervisor will give you a fingerprint kit as well as instructions as part of the required VISTA background check process. Please note that you will need to use the specific fingerprint kit provided, and you will have 30 days to get fingerprinted. That's 30 days from your first day of service. We'll also go over this in more detail in next week's webinar.
All right, so that was a look at what's ahead before you get started. Now let's shift and talk a little bit about your actual service and what it means to be a VISTA member. So you're about to join VISTA, a federal program that started in 1965 as Volunteers in Service to America. Almost 3 decades later, VISTA became part of the AmeriCorps family of programs in 1994 under the federal agency that's called the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. As a VISTA member, you're making a 1-year, 365-day full-time commitment to strengthen and support your community. You will strengthen, expand, and increase the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs. You will work on projects with staff and volunteers to build capacity rather than providing direct service to people in need. At the heart of VISTA service is your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. Your VAD tells you the overarching goals of your project, explains the objectives that you're working towards during your year, and it lays out the specific activities that you will perform in order to accomplish your objectives. All VISTA members should have a VISTA assignment description, and if you don't have yours or you haven't seen it yet, you can download a copy of it from your account in my.americorps.gov. And it's important to know who wrote your VAD. in many cases, it won't be your direct supervisor. So you'll want to discuss how the VAD was developed and who wrote it so that, when you're checking in with your supervisor, you'll have a sense of where that VAD came from. If for some reason you can't find your VAD in your account, or if the one that's attached there doesn't align with what it is that you think you're going to be doing as a VISTA, then follow up directly with your supervisor when you get on site next week. It's common for VISTAs to sometimes need to flesh out their VAD at the start of their service year. Next week, we'll provide some more details related to the capacity building service of VISTA members and your VISTA assignment. So again, please make sure that you have a copy of your VISTA assignment description by next Monday, which is your first day of service.
So before we continue, we're going to pause a second to see if there are any questions about what you need to do before and on your first day of service. At this time, we'll only be answering some questions in the Q&A pod that have come in, and looking through it, it doesn't look like there are a ton of questions, but there are a few. There are a few questions about fingerprints, and just to reiterate, we are going to go into more details on the fingerprint process next week. But I saw a couple questions come in. Hey, I've already served with VISTA and did the fingerprint process. So there's a couple of different scenarios there, and they're asking if they have to do the fingerprint process again. So if you've served a full year VISTA term and have gone through the FBI background check, the fingerprint process for VISTA, it's possible you don't have to. It depends, and in those scenarios, you can reply to me or email myself, Chris Hawks, or your state office, and we'll confirm if you need to do it again. For those of you who served as the VISTA Summer Associates this summer, and then are moving into a full year VISTA service term right now, yes, you will have to conduct the fingerprint process. So it's a couple of different scenarios. If you're unsure, we're here to support and answer your questions.
Yeah, and then Chris, there's a couple of folks had questions about the online tutorials or the online coursework to complete before you begin service. And so the two that are absolutely required before your first day is the Civil Rights and Responsibilities and VISTA Terms and Conditions. You have to complete both of those tutorials on the campus and then go into your account in My AmeriCorps and certify that you accept the content, that you've completed those and you understand the content and you accept all the conditions there. You have to check that off and sort of sign off on it in My AmeriCorps. So that's the official place where it gets logged and recorded. You won't necessarily see any difference when you're in the campus. Like if you go back to Civil Rights and Responsibility, it won't tell you, hey, this is complete. When you click to start it, it'll say, do you want to pick up where you left off or do you want to start over? So that gives you a clue that you've been here before. But it doesn't actually, verify that you've completed something there in the campus. So hopefully that clarifies that requirement for the online tutorials.
And I see a few questions coming in, some about, looks like SNAP, some about leave benefits, and we're going to get to some benefits, to VISTA benefits in this latter portion of the webinar. So we're going to hold any of those questions till later. We'll also have another opportunity for a Q&A session at the very end of this webinar, so we'll just hold those questions. I did see one asking about their first day of service. If the launching your VISTA service webinar takes place during the orientation. So yes, so next Monday you're expected to be on site, and the webinar again is going to take place at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we're expecting that you're at your project and your supervisors are aware that that this is a required webinar on your first date. So they'll probably have you at an orientation depending on your time, on your work hours, what time you go in, and also where you're located in the country, the time zone. But a lot of you may be having orientation in the morning and then have something set up where you attend this webinar in the afternoon. So yes, your supervisors are aware. If for any reason they aren't aware, again, just communicate, let us know, we'll get things squared away.
Great. Yeah, a couple other quick questions. I saw someone who was serving or is serving still as a VISTA summer associate and took the oath as a summer associate and asked, do I have to take the oath again next week? The answer is yes. You'll be starting a new term of VISTA service, so you will get sworn in again. And let's see, there was one other question. Oh, is attendance being recorded for this webinar? Yes, it is. So if you've logged in and you put your name in there, then absolutely we've recorded your attendance so we know that you're here. So thank you for that.
And just one more thing to follow up on that. Thanks, Andy. For those who were serving as summer associates, it looks like a question if, hey, I served as a summer associate and I already completed these pre-service forms. Yes, if you served as a summer associate, we ask for your direct deposit forms and whatnot, W-4. If all of that is remaining the same, then you're good in that area. However, you do need to accept the terms and conditions again that Andy went over. So even if you previously accepted it, you will have to do that again. That is one of the required forms. And you'll also have to make your end of service benefit selection again. That's another one. So it's not like it automatically rolls over. You still have to do those forms.
Great. Thank you for that clarification, Chris.
Yeah. And I think, so there's a few more questions coming in. These look like benefits related. We will continue on, but please keep the questions coming. Again, we'll have another Q&A session at the end, and our colleagues Kaylee, Kate, and Khadijah are typing furiously to answer these really specific questions as well, one-on-one. So, moving on, as a VISTA member, there are a lot of benefits available during your year of service. So we'll go through those benefits of service. As you've seen, this page at the VISTA campus contains an overview of all of your benefits. Some benefits, such as the living allowance, are available to all VISTAs. Other benefits may only be useful for some of you, such as, for example, child care assistance. It's your responsibility to look up the details and action steps required to make use of your benefits. If you have questions about benefits, make a note to review the benefits section on the VISTA campus after this webinar. Again, I highly recommend it. It's a great resource, has a ton of information and a ton of links as well to if you really want to dive down into the details. There's some links to further dive in. But right now, through this webinar, we're going to provide some details about some of the benefits that seem to generate the most questions from VISTAs.
And what better place to begin than talking about the living allowance, since most people like to get paid. So from the benefits page of the campus, if you click on the living allowance link, you find information there about the living allowance benefit. And I just want to point out that for every section or every benefit on the page, near the bottom of the descriptive text, you'll find additional links under the heading Resources, where you can find out more, in this case, about your living allowance, including tips for how to live on the living allowance. You'll also find a living allowance calendar, so you'll know when you're going to get paid, as well as a list of the living allowance rates. So if you don't know the amount of your living allowance, this is the place to go. You can also ask your VISTA supervisor, your CNCS state office, or the National Service Hotline. And speaking of the living allowance, you might be interested to know when you're going to get paid. So does anybody happen to know when your first living allowance payment will be? If you think you know it, you can type your answer in the chat over to the right of the slides. Wow, you guys are quick. August 23rd, everyone's saying, oh, late August, yep, 8/23. You got it. So clearly you all are paying attention at least to when you get paid. So it is August 23rd that you're scheduled for your first living allowance payment. And it's important to know that VISTAs are paid every 2 weeks on Fridays. Now, this information applies to most VISTAs. Some of you will be paid directly by your VISTA sponsor. And you'll want to ask your supervisor if that's the case. Ask your supervisor if you're going to get paid by them or by the VISTA program. And if you're paid by your sponsor, their schedule might be slightly different from ours. So your pay date might be, a few days different from what I just mentioned. It's important for you to know that federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. So you're going to have to figure out your own level of responsibility for state income tax. You can check the web page for your state Department of Taxation or the comptroller in your state. Look for a tax table and more details about what income tax looks like in your state. If you're paid by us, paid by the VISTA program, you can access your living allowance statement. It's like your pay stub in your account at my.americorps.gov. If you're paid directly by your VISTA sponsor, then you'll get a pay statement from them. And finally, I want to make you aware that your VISTA service does not qualify you to receive unemployment compensation after your service year is over. This is because, first of all, you're not an employee. You're not an employee of the federal government or of your project site, so no unemployment insurance is being provided for your VISTA year. And while we're talking about payment, let's talk a little bit about direct deposit. So in order to make sure that you get your living allowance, it's critical that you complete the direct deposit information correctly. It may seem obvious, but people can sometimes make mistakes. And, all it takes is one tiny mistake and you won't get paid. So if either the routing number or the account number that's listed is not correct, not only will you not get paid on the scheduled pay date, but you'll have to wait at least 2 weeks until the next pay period for you to get paid. Now, eventually you will get paid, but you're just going to have to wait, and that can be a huge burden. So as you probably know, you can find the routing number and your checking account number on your paper checks if you have them, or you can go to your online banking site and look for an account statement and get the information there. But you might just want to call your bank just to be sure that you have the right information. Like one time I thought I was super smart. I'm like, I'm just going to go online. I don't have to talk to anybody. And I went to my bank's website. I found a routing number and I used it. Turns out that was a routing number for that bank, but it wasn't for my account. So that bank had multiple routing numbers and I picked the wrong one. So don't let that happen to you. Double check, triple check to make sure you've got the right information. And then make sure that you've entered it correctly in your account at my.americorps.gov. And let's see, one other topic here is related to living allowance and income is on the subject of public assistance that may be tied to income. So if you are already receiving some form of public assistance, such as temporary assistance to needy families, or the Low-Income Household Energy Assistance Program, known as LIHEAP, if you're getting any one of public assistance benefit, your living allowance, the VISTA living allowance, or any other payments that you get from the VISTA program will not affect the level of assistance that you receive. Likewise, if you're applying for new public assistance benefits, then your living allowance should not be factored in when determining the level of benefits that you receive. The one exception to this is the SNAP program, formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now, or at any time during your year of service, your VISTA Living Allowance and other payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility and your benefit level. However, if you were already receiving SNAP before you enrolled in the VISTA program, then your benefit remains unchanged. As you probably know, public benefits are managed by state and local entities, and we here at CNCS really have nothing to do with how they're administered. So if you have questions, you're going to need to speak with a caseworker or one of the offices that administers the program to get advice. Now, in about 2 weeks, you'll be able to access, view, and print what we call your service letter, and you can access that from your homepage in my.americorps.gov. And you see the image there is an arrow pointing to My Service Letter. So when you apply for public assistance, you will want to print this letter because it explains that you're serving as a VISTA member, and it cites the authority for what we call income disregard.
And after successfully completing your service, you are eligible for one of two benefits: the Education Award or the cash stipend. For the Education Award, it can be used to pay federal student loans or to pay for education at any Title IV institution, which is an institution that accepts federal funds. You have 7 years to use it, and you cannot transfer it to anyone else. Now, the cash stipend, that is paid out via direct deposits at the very end of your service. The most important detail to know is that if you are unsure of which benefit to choose, I suggest that you select the Education Award for now, because then you have up until the 10th month of service to switch to the cash stipend. Once you start service, you are not able to switch from the cash stipend to the Education Award, so that vice versa doesn't work. So when you choose the cash stipend, if you want to choose that, it's a final decision. But if you select the Education Award, you have some flexibility up until your 10th month of service. So if you're unsure, go with the Education Award. If you're sure, by all means, make your selection one way or the other. And there is still a little bit of time. We know the forms, we wanted the forms prior to this webinar all to be done, but if you learned something new, maybe from this webinar or from reading something on the VISTA Campus and want to change your end of service benefit selection, you can still change that in the coming days, one way or another. But once you start service, that's when it's no more. So more specific details regarding Education Award eligibility, institutions that may match the Education Award, and other things to know can be found on vistacampus.gov as well as nationalservice.gov.
And for anyone who has student loans, there are ways that you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your year of service. So if you choose the Education Award, you can request National Service Loan Forbearance for your federally backed student loans. And that means you do not have to make monthly loan payments during your year of service, and you can request the National Service Trust to pay off the accrued interest on your federal loan after you complete your year. Just be aware that that interest payment is considered taxable income. Federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, and you have to initiate the process by submitting a loan forbearance request in your account where? At my.americorps.gov. So you'll be able to do this about a week into your service by using the My Education Award link, which is going to appear in your account. Now, if you select the end of service cash stipend, or if you have private student loans, then you can request what's called loan deferment. And with loan deferment, it means that you apply directly with your lender, and you give them the reason of economic hardship. Now, you may be able to have your accrued interest paid off by the Department of Education if you have a federally subsidized loan that you put into deferment. If you've got a Perkins loan, you may be able to have a portion of your Perkins loan forgiven. So a few other things to know. Loan deferment is not guaranteed, and it might not be offered by all lenders, so you should check with your lender to get the specifics. And neither of these two options, the loan forbearance and the loan deferment, neither one of those is going to happen automatically. You've got to request them through the appropriate process. So for more details on everything we've just covered relating to the Education Award and loans, you're going to want to go to the Education Award tutorial, and you can see the link there. It's nationalservice.gov/resources/edaward. And after you have officially started service, you can go into your account in my.americorps.gov to submit your loan forbearance request. And remember that it's your responsibility to submit that forbearance request and then to check on its status. At the end of your service year, it's also your responsibility to go in and ask to have to submit any Education Award payment requests, as well as an interest accrual payment request. So again, those won't happen automatically. You will go in and make those yourself.
So next up, we're going to look at the healthcare benefits. So the VISTA program offers two different health benefit options. One is for VISTAs who have health coverage currently, so like health insurance or Medicaid, and the other benefit is for VISTAs who don't currently have health coverage. If you have health insurance or other coverage, you are eligible to enroll in the VISTA Healthcare Allowance. And this is the plan that provides reimbursement up to $7,900 for qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. You can use the healthcare allowance towards certain expenses, certain out-of-pocket expenses like co-payments for office visits, services, or prescriptions. You can use it for medications and medical supplies, and also towards meeting your annual deductible. The healthcare allowance will not reimburse you for the cost of buying health insurance, or paying the monthly premiums. It won't reimburse in that regard. If you do not have any health coverage, you are eligible to enroll in the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. This is a safety net plan that covers basic healthcare needs. It covers many basic services with very low copays, but it does have some limitations, and it does not cover pre-existing conditions. There is no deductible for the health benefit plan. Both of these options also include limited dental and vision benefits, and both options are free. So nothing is deducted from your living allowance or anything like that, no matter which option you choose. Both options only cover you, the VISTA member. To receive this benefit, you must enroll. There is no automatic enrollment in this. You'll have to create an account on IMG. So in about 2 weeks, you can't do it at this moment. It'll be after you start your VISTA service, roughly 2 weeks from now. You're going to get an email from IMG. IMG is International Medical Group. They're the contracting partner who manages the health benefits. So once you get that email, they will provide you instructions on how to enroll, let you know which plan you're eligible for. They may request certain documentation, and you'll have to create an account on the IMG website. So VISTAs who want to seek coverage through the health insurance marketplace can also take advantage of the special enrollment period of 60 days, and that's 60 days from the start and end date of your VISTA service. You're able to take advantage of the special enrollment period. And by doing that, you can go to healthcare.gov to shop for plans and see what subsidies you qualify for. But to enroll during a special enrollment period, you will need to call the marketplace.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of the big benefits, the main benefits that apply to all VISTAs. I also want to mention that there are other benefits available to VISTA members, and as we previously mentioned, some of them may be available or applicable only to some VISTA members. These include benefits like relocation and childcare. So for relocation, those of you relocating more than 50 miles from your home of record to your VISTA service site, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and a one-time settling in allowance. If you're eligible for financial support, for relocation support, you should have already received communication from the VISTA Member Support Unit. If you relocated more than 50 miles to your VISTA site and you've not yet received an email about that, then you can inquire about your eligibility by emailing vmsu@cns.gov. That email address is there on the screen. I'll also mention AmeriCorps VISTA offers a child care benefit to VISTA members who qualify. And to qualify, you have to meet certain eligibility requirements like household income limits, and you have to be the parent or legal guardian of a child under the age of 13 who lives with you. So for more information and to apply, you see the website there. It's AmeriCorpsChildcare.com.
And also as a VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits available during your year of service. So you have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave available to you. But make sure to read the VISTA member handbook regarding the time periods you're permitted to use your leave. Additionally, you will be able to observe the national holidays that are recognized by your service site. So for example, if your site observes Labor Day as a day off, then you would also have that day off. However, you do not get excused leave for federal holidays that are not recognized by your site. So for an example in that regard, if your site maybe doesn't give staff a holiday for Veterans Day, if they don't, then you also are expected to serve that day, unless of course you request and receive approval for 1 day of personal leave on that day. Also, you do not get excused leave if your site is closed for several days or for an extended period of time. An example of that might be every once in a while a project may have a week or two where they close down over the winter holidays. And in those instances, you would need to work with your supervisor to either still serve during that time or use personal leave. So you could set something up with your supervisor. They should be aware of this rule as well, so they can have some work for you to do during that break where the office isn't open. Your supervisor and you will monitor your time and attendance. This is a question that comes up quite a bit. A lot of questions about timesheets. So VISTA headquarters, we don't monitor the timesheets. Your project and supervisor will take care of that. So in terms of timesheets, your projects may have a plan, and they'll go over that with you during your first day or your first week and let you know how to submit those at your site. And you'll also submit any leave requests to your supervisor directly. So I know we just covered a lot of information, and we see all these questions coming in, and again, I know a lot of them are being answered by our team right now, and we'll also get a chance to go after them later. But for now, we want to say we're going to kind of switch gears a bit. So you should know that you have access to a lot of benefits during your year, and we hope that you all have a better idea of at least how to find out more about them. VISTA Campus, for sure, that's going to be a great resource. And also what action steps are needed to take in order to make use of them. So switching gears a bit, we're going to review some of the key terms and conditions of VISTA service. So we know that many of you have already completed the VISTA terms and conditions, But we want to make sure everyone is clear on these, so we're going to do a quick little interactive activity to review the main conditions of VISTA service. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to read a service activity, and using the annotation tool, you can indicate whether you believe the answer is yes or no. So to use the annotation tool, so you see a little image there now. You're not able to access it quite yet, but you'll be able to access it in a second. What you're going to do is you'll select the square icon in the drawing tool pane on the left side of the slide, and that's going to activate the annotation toolbar. Next up, you'll hit that little arrow that's right next to the square, and that's going to expand your shape options. And we ask that you select the check mark or the X to make your selection. And then you're going to be able to select anywhere on the slide to place your X, to place your check mark, and that's going to be in response to the statement on the screen. And when doing this, we ask that when you're placing your X on the screen, we ask that you don't click and drag. Just a simple click works, because if you click and drag, it kind of covers a lot of space. And we have a lot of VISTAs on this webinar. We want to see where everyone's answering. Ideally, not have a huge check box that's covering up everyone's answers. So just a quick click, and that's all that's necessary. Also, just as a note, I think we mentioned this at the beginning, but if you are watching this on a phone or tablet, the annotation function won't work. But in that case, we ask that you answer these questions using the chat box. Just type in your answer. So let's get started with the first question.
All right, so here it is, yes or no. I can voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. So again, use your annotation tool on the left side. Just a simple little check mark or an X will do it. Looks like we've got a real diversity of opinions here. We've got a real mix of yes and no.
Yeah.
Looks like maybe a bit more in the no category than in the yes category. Yeah, and if you're drawing a box, what you need to do is go back over to the left, click that little triangle next to the square, and then you'll see that menu will open up. And when the menu opens up, then you can select the X or the check mark. All right, so let's go ahead and reveal the correct answer here. All right, we've got some overgrown X's here. We're going to have to just cut this off. The answer is yes. You can list AmeriCorps VISTA on your social media profile and use that account to voice your political opinion. But as you might guess, there are some limitations. So, first of all, you cannot represent yourself as a spokesperson for AmeriCorps, for the VISTA program, the Corporation for National and Community Service, or your sponsoring organization. Additionally, you can voice your political opinions on your own time, but you cannot do it while you're serving at your site or using any of the equipment at your site, including their Wi-Fi network. Also, you should not put the CNCS logo or the AmeriCorps VISTA logo as your profile picture in social media, particularly when voicing political or other sensitive opinions. Because if you do that, it looks like that opinion is coming from us. So when in doubt, keep your VISTA service and your political activity completely separate. And if you have questions, you can always refer to the Hatch Act for more detailed information.
So next up, how about I can demonstrate in a political rally? Yes or no? So again, try to prevent those large click and drags. Thank you. Yeah, that way we could see all the answers and get an idea. The initial responses, overwhelmingly yes. Looks like in the chat as well, I see a lot of yeses coming in, but there's a few stray no's. We'll give it another few seconds to allow everyone to get a chance to answer. Wow. As you can see, there are a lot of VISTAs on this webinar. So, without further ado, the answer, as many of you got correct, is yes. And that's as long as you are not identified as a VISTA or perceived to be a VISTA. So that word perceived, the perceived to be a VISTA, is pretty important, because some of you may be serving in a really small town or a neighborhood where you're not necessarily wearing your VISTA polo shirt every day, but people happen to know that you are a VISTA member because it's so small. So if there's cases like that or anything else where there's any doubt about a specific activity, it's best to initially avoid it and consult with your supervisor or state office for approval or just for some clarification before going ahead with it.
All right, here's your next challenge. Yes or no? I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a VISTA. All right, so again, we've got a real mix of answers here, a mix of yeses and nos, and people in the chat have a mixture as well. Wow, it's like almost evenly split. It's rare that we have such a balanced thing here. All right, so let's delay no longer. The actual answer is no. So all of those of you in the no category, you're correct. You cannot raise money on behalf of a partisan political candidate at any time during your VISTA year. This is what I call the Sam I Am rule. So it doesn't matter if you're off duty, if you're doing it at home, if you're not identified as a VISTA member, if you're in a box with a fox, doesn't matter. At no time during your year of service may you do political fundraising. It's called the Federal Hatch Act, and it prohibits all fundraising for partisan political candidates. You can, however, raise funds in support of an issue, but again, you've got to do that on your own time and not be identified as a VISTA member.
All right, here's one that I usually 99% get correct. So I can have outside employment and or earn additional income while serving as a VISTA member. Is that yes or no? And responses coming in, I see so far 100% yes. Oh, one no. And the chat is all yes, with one X right on the line, kind of tippy-toeing. Maybe it's like a yes but. And we'll give another couple seconds as these are coming in. But, okay, that looks like it's kind of slowing down. So I will go ahead and move on, and the answer is yes. So while you are allowed to have outside part-time employment, there are a few key policy items to keep in mind. So it is a yes but it is a yes. So outside employment must not conflict with your project service or your service hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or VISTA program requirements or policy. Pretty standard. So under no circumstances may a VISTA member be an employee of or contractor for the sponsor or project to which they are assigned to serve. So you can't work for your project. That would be a conflict with your VISTA duties. So also, your supervisor must approve and agree that the outside work will not interfere with the VISTA project. If the work does interfere, then the VISTA may be asked to either end employment or to end their VISTA service. Also, only part-time outside employment is allowed while serving as a VISTA member. You're going to have to complete, for those who do have outside employment, need to complete an outside employment request form. This is available within the outside employment policy. And it can be found on the VISTA campus. And it's just a short form. It's simple. It's basically, name or address of the employment area and a contact person. It's a quick form, and you submit it to your supervisor. It is required to have on file to have that outside employment. And any information, there's frequently asked questions on this, and other information that can be found on the VISTA campus at that link that's on the slide. And that link is also available in the handouts and the helpful links in the handouts that you can download.
All right. Whew. We've provided you with a lot of information today, and we know you've got a bunch of questions, but before we move on to those questions, let's recap what it is that you need to do, ideally by the end of the day tomorrow, so that we can verify all of your information before your first day of service, which is, again, next Monday. So within MyAmeriCorps, at my.americorps.gov, there are these 4 forms you need to complete: the direct deposit, federal tax withholding, the unpaid compensation information, and the end of service benefit selection. And then in VISTA Campus, there are these courses that you need to complete. The most urgent are the Civil Rights and Responsibilities and the VISTA Terms and Conditions, because you cannot start service without having accepted those 2. There's also a little quiz that you can take at the end to test your knowledge, see if you're smarter than a 5th grader or whatever it would be. Kind of fun. But that's it.
So now that we've taken care of all the action items, we want to know really what you thought and how can we improve this presentation for future VISTA members. So we ask that you take just a few moments. It's a quick survey to take a few moments to complete it and to let you know that we honestly do use these answers to try to help improve future sessions for VISTAs. So all your feedback is truly appreciated. And so while you do complete that, as promised, we are going to kind of sift through some of these questions, look through some of the more common questions that are coming up in the Q&A pod, and try to tackle some of these down. So bear with us just a second as we kind of look through, and we'll start going through them. There's a bunch coming in.
Yeah, indeed there are. And so there were a few questions relating to the living allowance benefit and payment and direct deposit. So a couple persons asked slightly different variations of the question. What if my bank account information changes? Like, I've already set up my direct deposit, but I know I'm going to be moving or I'm getting a new bank. Well, you can update your direct deposit information at any time, but just be aware that your that the data that comes out of our system, like the payroll data, gets run on a Tuesday right before your Friday pay date. So ideally, you want to get your direct deposit updated by Monday of that week that you're going to get paid, so that when we run the data on Tuesday, your new bank information will be there, and then on Friday, when the payment gets issued, it goes to the correct bank.
And I just noticed that in the chat, so while, just a quick mention that while the survey link is there, I know it kind of is covering up the handouts, and there were a few mentions in the chat about wanting to download those. So we'll get that back up in a few minutes. But also, if you for any reason aren't able to access those handouts to download, shoot me an email. I'll get them right back to you. I can just email them back to you. Again, chawks@cns.gov. So, looking through a few more. Any other on the living allowance? Kind of try to keep these in
Yeah, I didn't really see any specific to the living allowance. There's a lot more about loans and forbearance and then health benefits.
Gotcha.
So do you want to move on to the loan topic?
Let's do it. I'm trying to track it down. They're going so fast.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier about the Perkins loans, and let's see, Clarice asked, like, hey, how can I get more information? I've got a Perkins loan. So if you go to that Education Award tutorial, if you're on the VISTA Campus under benefits, look at education related. There's a whole website about the Education Award. And there's a section there about Perkins loans and VISTAs. It's only VISTA members, not other types of AmeriCorps members, that can get the partial forgiveness of the Perkins loans. Of course, there are some specific conditions that apply, so you're going to want to read it carefully to see if it's going to work for you, if it makes sense. And of course, for any question you have about the Education Award or loan forbearance and loan deferment, that Education Award tutorial is your go-to place. Here's another question that sometimes comes up. It's about the Education Award. This one came in from Patricia, and she says, hey, somewhere I think I saw something about if you're over 55 that you could transfer your Education Award to a younger relative. Is that true everywhere? Well, it's true for other AmeriCorps programs, specifically AmeriCorps State and National. It's not true for VISTA. So if you're a VISTA member and you pick the Education Award, only you can use that Education Award. You're not able to give it away to anybody else. I don't know why the law is that way. I think it was an oversight or a technical mistake that it's set up that way. It's unfortunate. But just be aware that as a VISTA member, you cannot transfer the Ed Award.
And just a couple quick answers on the Education Award as well. Someone asking if, it was Danielle, asking if the year of service is eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Yes, your year of VISTA service is eligible. And those requests can be sent either to the National Service Hotline or to the VMSU. And also a question that comes up relatively frequently, the interest accrual payment that occurs at the end of the year if you select the Education Award and put your loans into forbearance. The question is that payment in addition to the Education Award? And the answer is yes. That's completely separate from your Education Award amount, that interest payment. So it's just another benefit. Just keep in mind that it is taxable when that interest payment is paid by the National Service Trust.
Yeah, a couple of other related questions. Several folks have asked, hey, where do I find this forbearance request in my AmeriCorps? I'm in there now, I'm looking, and I don't see it. Well, you won't see it now because you're not yet a VISTA member, right? You won't start until next Monday, and it'll take our team here several days to get your account completed and activated in the system. Once that happens, then that option will show up, and in your left menu in My AmeriCorps under Education Award is where you'll be able to see the option for submitting a forbearance request. I'm sure there are others. There are so many questions here, it's hard to sift through every single one of them.
Yeah, might not be, I mean, we can certainly, if we catch any other education award ones, we could certainly run back to it.
Oh, here's one last question. Sorry, Ellie asked, can I apply for both deferral and forbearance? I've got some private loans and some federal loans. Can I, do both? Yeah, you can. So your federal loans, you can put into forbearance with us. You do that through My AmeriCorps. Your private loans, you can request with the lender to put them into deferral. You'll have to do that individually with each private loan lender. All right. So maybe it's time to move on to healthcare?
Yeah, sounds good. Just saw one that came up asking if you are still eligible for Medicaid once your VISTA service starts, since the living allowance exceeds the income requirements. And that's a great question that comes up pretty frequently. And the answer is yes, you're still eligible. That VISTA living allowance that you're going to start receiving won't affect your Medicaid eligibility, and you will have a service letter once you start your service. Once you're activated and all your paperwork is processed, you're going to have a service letter in your My AmeriCorps account that verifies this. And so sometimes, the administrator for Medicaid may reach out and ask for that letter, and you can provide that. That letter will be available to you throughout your year of service.
All right. We've got a lot of questions around the specific benefits. Some of them, we can cover here. Others, they get so detailed, or it may be so specific to your own situation, that it's better that you talk to IMG, the International Medical Group. They're the ones who administer these benefits. They've got folks standing by, on the phone to answer those kind of questions. So we'll cover some of the general stuff here. So with the healthcare allowance, a couple of questions. One came in asking, can I use the healthcare allowance to cover things that my insurance plan doesn't? Because I've got a kind of a basic plan and they don't cover a lot of stuff. Can I use the allowance for that? The answer is it depends. So I'm sorry I can't give you any more of satisfying answer than that. You will want to check with IMG to find out, because there are certain limitations on the healthcare allowance, how it can be used, and you're going to want to be sure before you start taking on expenses what you're going to get reimbursed for. The other question that came up several times about healthcare is, hey, I'm currently on my parents' plan, or I'm on a plan here, but that one's going to end when I move. What do I do? How do I sign up for new coverage? So if you're, let's take the first one. Say you're on your parents' plan now, and during your VISTA year, you're going to turn 26. Well, and then you won't be eligible anymore for that plan. That's what's called a qualifying life event. And so when that happens, and there are lots of different things that can be a qualifying life event, and that happens and you have to go seek new coverage, then you're eligible to go to the healthcare marketplace, healthcare.gov, look for a plan, and sign up for that plan there. It's not open enrollment season, but because of your QLE, you've got that option. Your other option is, of course, you could sign up for the VISTA Health Benefit Plan. It's our sort of safety net plan, doesn't cost you anything, and it's very low out-of-pocket. Pretty good for most VISTAs. It doesn't cover everything, so you're going to want to read up on it to see if it would meet your needs. But those are two things that you can do if your coverage changes or your coverage ends because of a qualifying life event. Another possibility is you're currently paying out of pocket for your own insurance plan, and then you become a VISTA member and you just find out, hey, I cannot afford this anymore. What do I do? The thing to do would be, first of all, make that decision in your first 60 days, because as was mentioned earlier, you have a 60-day a special enrollment period at the start of your VISTA service term where you can go to healthcare.gov, research a plan, and then call the marketplace and sign up. It's outside of open enrollment season, but it's a special enrollment period that VISTAs get, so you could take advantage of that. Or again, you could sign up for the VISTA Health Benefit Plan. So those are some options there.
Okay, and coming down, I'm seeing a few questions about leave. And again, I'll still keep a lookout for any health benefit questions. One is, if we are working at schools, do we get those days off excused? And it's a great question and kind of difficult to answer without knowing which days off are being referenced. But for the holidays that the school recognizes, that where all employees and school students are off, yes, you would be able to take that off as well. But if we're talking about a teacher work day where students might have off, but the employees of the school are still working, yes, you would still plan on serving as a VISTA that day. And also, as the example mentioned previously, you know, if there's a large winter break or even a spring break where there's an extended leave where the school might be out, you would need to work with your supervisor to get a plan in place so that you could continue to serve through that time, unless you prefer to take personal leave and have off. And you know, any questions? That's something you can go over with your supervisor during your first couple weeks of service to kind of plan ahead and make sure you're covered. Keep going down.
Let's see, so here's a question about another type of public assistance that we haven't talked much about. Tennille says, hey, I've seen comments something about discounted water and power. What is this? Well, that's something I briefly referenced. There's a program called LIHEAP. It's the Low Income Household Energy Assistance Program. Started out as like help with heating bill, you know, during the middle of winter when heating costs are high. Those programs are available all around the country in every state, so you can just put in a search engine, LIHEAP, L-I-H-E-A-P, and your state. It'll direct you to the agency or agencies that run that program there. It's often a partnership between the utility companies and some government agencies that provide assistance to low-income individuals with energy bills. It could be electric bill in the summer and gas bill in the winter, or it could be other utilities as well. So often people hear about SNAP or VISTAs always get focused on the SNAP benefit, but oftentimes your utility bills could be, you know, a more significant part of your budget depending on where you live. And when you start adding all of them up, you know, of course, there are discount internet plans available and discount cell phone plans and all of that stuff. So be resourceful as VISTAs are. Do a little bit of research and take advantage of anything that you apply for, or that you qualify for, rather.
I got a question coming up. Is there a total number of hours required weekly for my VISTA position? So that is, and at the end they ask, is that more of a site question? So yeah, there isn't an exact number of hours that is required. It is considered a full-time, serving full-time. So you could average that to 40 through the sites throughout the country. But that is certainly something you want to check with your supervisor on in terms of a typical work week schedule, if there is a typical one. Some sites might have varying schedules. And also, you know, how to complete your timesheets and all that will all go through your supervisor, and something that will be set up in your on-service or on-site orientation and training that'll take place during your first couple of weeks as a VISTA. And there were a couple other comments of people coming in saying, I don't know who my supervisor is. And again, just to repeat, you can contact your state office, which is the state abbreviation. The example we gave was Texas, is tx@cns.gov. Or another, my home state of North Carolina would be nc@cns.gov. You can contact them so they could put you in contact with your supervisor and make sure everything's clear. Maybe the contact information is out of date. You can also, maybe the person you interviewed with at the project might be different from your supervisor, but that could be another contact person at your site as well. Another question on outside, there's been a couple questions on the outside work request form for the part-time employment. One question, or a few of them actually, asking about contract work, and another asking about periodic babysitting. So if it's periodic babysitting and you don't, have your own personal contract or company, and you just do this from time to time on the side, and it's outside VISTA hours, you probably don't need a form for that unless it's, a specific schedule that's set up that may from time to time prevent you from, not being able to work late as a VISTA. If that was the case, if you had to do that every Thursday and Friday, I would let your supervisor know and work around that form just so that everyone's clear and on the same schedule. Again, it's a quick, easy form. Same for the contract, a personal contract or private contractor. If you do work on the side, someone mentioned they were building a website for someone. Yes, if it's even if you're self-contracted, you should complete that form. Again, it's just to keep everyone on the same page, making sure everyone's good on hours and knows what the workload is. It's always a good idea for the supervisor to kind of know not be pushing you too hard if they know you have, a second job going on. So that's always good as well, and just keeping in communication.
All right, just a couple other clarifications related to health benefits. So a couple folks asked for more information about how the healthcare allowance works. Is it reimbursement style? What can it be used for? So again, the healthcare allowance is if you've already got health coverage, this is intended to cover what would be your out-of-pocket expenses. So a co-payment or a prescription that's not covered, or some other co-insurance, or what's typically considered out-of-pocket. There's also some limited vision and dental charges that can be covered by that healthcare allowance. It works in two different ways. One is reimbursement, so you can go to the pharmacy, pay for your medication, get the receipt, submit it online, and then later you get reimbursed. But also, when you sign up for the program, they'll provide you with a card. And when you go to the doctor's office or the pharmacy, you hand them your insurance card, say, this is my primary, and then you hand them the IMG card, and that's your secondary. So the patient portion that's not covered by your insurance gets billed directly to IMG, so you're not out of pocket. You don't have to wait to get reimbursed. So that's how that healthcare allowance piece actually works. The other question was around the health benefit plan, and you'll definitely want to read the details about it to make sure that it's going to work for you. The main consideration there is it has some exclusions around pre-existing conditions. So like doctor's visits for certain things, if you have a pre-existing condition, would not be covered, but your prescriptions or medical equipment could be covered. So it's I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand until you look into it a little more carefully and see if it would work for you. And I think that's it for healthcare. We're down to the last couple minutes. Chris, I don't know if you see another simple question that could be answered. quickly before we wrap up?
Going through, and looks you covered quite a bit on that one, so that was great on these coming in. Here's a question on VISTA gear. We'll go over that more in next Monday's webinar. So we'll go over gear. You do get some gear. That's the quick answer. Non-competitive eligibility. Yes, VISTAs are eligible for do receive non-competitive eligibility status after completing their year of service. You will have a letter that's available in your My AmeriCorps account that verifies your dates and your year of service. Actually, that letter is available to you forever once you complete your service. So once you close out, finish your service, you'll have that letter, and you can show that as proof for non-competitive eligibility. There's a few links, and it goes into pretty good detail on the VISTA Campus. Under the benefits section, there's a link regarding the non-competitive eligibility. Can't go into too much detail right now just because we're running out of time, but definitely check out the VISTA Campus on that. But yeah, it does look like we're running out of time, so I think we will wrap things up for this webinar. So we do want to thank everyone for joining this call and for joining VISTA. Thank you for choosing to serve. We look forward to seeing everyone again next Monday. August 5th is going to be your first day of service and the Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. We hope that everyone has a great week, and from all of us here at VISTA and CNCS, thank you.